Thanks for joining us. This is The Economy. Happy New Year. This is the first episode of the year for 2025, and we always start the year on looking at what can we expect and improve for ourselves, as well as what to expect in terms of the mega trends that will be expected for this year. In my office right now is Richard Kerr of Richard Kerr Digital, a very profound storyteller. I think many of us have seen at least some form of his posting. So Richard, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Richard Kerr Digital?
So firstly, I run the social media agency, and we focus primarily on social media. We help our partners, we call them partners, grow their digital presence through the content that we create. And we focus a lot on short videos today. And as you know, short videos are probably the best way to grow on social media, because everyone's on TikTok, Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels. So we focus primarily on that. And we focus a lot using creativity and storytelling.
It's quite a pivot, because I think the very first time I met you was when you were still with Heralding.
That's correct.
And you have been a strong proponent of Cyberjaya, I suppose, yes, as a locality. What got you into this space?
So I have been actually working at the government agencies previously. I worked for Magic last time. As you know, Magic used to be the agency that looks after the startup ecosystem in Malaysia. Yeah. So I worked for Cyberview. As you know, Cyberview looks after Cyberjaya. So I've been in the tech space, entrepreneurship space for quite some time actually. So one of the biggest things that I saw was a lot of these companies. I met so many amazing companies and founders, great products, great services, but one thing they struggle is how do they market themselves? How can they tell better stories?
But this is a perennial problem, isn't it?
Yes, it is actually.
You can have the best product and the best services. Yeah. The poor storytelling will be the one that will be the Achilles heel.
Exactly. So that's why I saw the opportunity in this space. That why don't I come in and see how can I help these businesses to grow their presence, at least help them to build their brand and help them market their products or services in a more relatable way.
And of course, there's another flip side to this, because being a Sabahan, there's also that heritage NGO that you do.
Yes, correct.
Talk to us to that effect.
So I founded an NGO called North Borneo Historical Society. So that was actually started many years ago when I was still living and working in Beijing actually. The reason I started that is because as I was doing research a lot of Sabah's history, I encountered so many amazing stories, but there was no central location that I can find this information. So I said, instead of trying to look for one, why don't I start one? So I started with a Facebook page. Whatever information that I found but related to Sabah's history, I would actually dump everything there, old photos, old archives. So it became sort of like a
repository.
Yeah, exactly, for people to go to. And I was able to build a community around it. So today it has about 80,000 followers, I think. So that actually also encourage more Sabahans to be more interested in the history of Sabah. So I noticed after that there were a lot of new groups popping up, also talking about the same topic. So I said, oh, my work is done, basically.
But it's still ongoing?
Yeah, still ongoing. So I still regularly, whatever I found, I'll just post them there.
Falling back to the main topic, which is on trying to see how we can take stock of what has happened last year, and how shall we plan our steps for this year. Where do you think is the most important thing that we need to focus on for this year if we want to be better marketeers, better storytellers, especially when it comes to omni-channel approach and attention economy, reducing the attention span of our consumers even further?
Yeah. So in this sense, we can't run away from social media, right? Because as you said, today actually we live in the attention economy, and attention today is of course social media. And I think for many companies, they think that social media is just one of the channels to do businesses, but in fact it is actually one of the main channels that they should focus on. And you can't be doing the same way of you running traditional media and promoting your products the same old way, because social media is a totally different space. People do not want to be sold on social media. That's one thing for sure. So you need to be able to create compelling content that is educational, inspirational, or entertaining in some ways. I think most people would do entertaining content, right? But I think if companies would be able to focus on those two things, sharing their stories, sharing inspirational stories about their companies or people around them, or how did they start their companies, those kind of things, I feel that can help build traction, especially for businesses who are very traditional. Yeah.
Speaking about business owners who are very traditional, they might still be on Facebook still.
Right.
They have not migrated to new platforms. They know of TikTok. I'm pretty sure of it. I don't think they have an account.
Right.
How do they go about this whole idea of trying to reach new consumers when they themselves are unfamiliar with these kind of platforms?
Understand? So as you can see, right, this is somewhat related to the mindset. You need to be able to change the mindset first, and then that can only start from you. And in that sense, I think probably the baby steps business owners can do is try to download TikTok first, at least today, and just have a look like what kind of content do people create. But I think in most cases, people are already on Facebook, they're already on Instagram. They would already seen the kind of content or short video content that are actually being pushed across these platforms. But the reason why I want to say TikTok is a lot of the trends will happen on TikTok first before they are pushed to other platforms.
So it will always most likely start or catch on fire on TikTok and then migrate elsewhere.
That's correct. That's correct. That's how it is today. Because as you know, TikTok basically changed the whole game, right? Because as you remember how when social media started, you need to be following certain accounts first, and the content that you'll see, you will only come from the content that has been created by the account, for example, right? But in today's context, very different today, because when you post a short video, for example, those short videos will be pushed to non-followers, people who have not seen your account, have not seen your brand, or even don't care that you exist. So that's why you need to be able to capture their attention and get people to be interested in your content. So that means everyone is given that equal opportunity to be present, to highlight whatever they have within the company.
There's a few TikTok creators that I would say unsuspecting or non-traditional.
Right.
One account that I enjoy is the press printing business in rural America. It's this old grandpa. I don't know whether you know.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's an old grandpa, and he has this press machine, and he makes newspaper fonts. That has like 2 million, 3 million followers.
Crazy.
I don't even understand why. Even he doesn't understand why. When he crossed the 2 million follower count, he made the short content, and then he just shared it, and he says, "Thank you for following my account. I still don't know why you're following my account." It's just a guy printing, old press machine.
Exactly.
How do you go about that? Like, especially in terms of trying to capture the imagination of users.
Right.
I don't know what is the secret sauce.
I don't think there's a secret sauce, but we have to think about from the human perspective, right? The human nature. People, as I said, firstly, people don't want to be sold. But if you're able to create content that is compelling enough, that touches human interests, that I think it's a powerful thing that you can do. And not only that, as I said, stories will always capture people. It is not about the features of a product, but it's about the stories. So imagine like this printing machine, right? That was probably used many years ago, like 50, 60 years ago. And to many people, I think to a lot of the younger generation, they probably have not seen or heard this kind of thing. But it is interesting, right? To me, it is interesting because it is part of our history. So if you're able to bring out those kind of stories, right? I think many industries today, like even in Malaysia, I feel there are a lot of great stories that are still waiting to be discovered. So those are the things that I think people should leverage on.
Okay, and then of course the whole question of how do you go about it, assuming you don't know where to start and stuff like that. Is there a role or is there still a role for influencers to come in and help the business? Is there any, how should I say, economic value in hiring influencers, even micro-influencers? Now there's nano-influencers apparently, in terms of promoting the business, or is just just money down the drain?
I think there's a combination of multiple things here. I think based on the most recent research that I saw, can't remember what's the source, they said leveraging on influencers is okay, but it is more effective leveraging on the micro and nano influencers. I think the reason is because it is more relatable. Say for example, your network, right? Maybe your LinkedIn network. I think you have probably about 15, 20,
15,000.
Yeah, 15,000 followers, right? So I think that's a good number because more people get to interact with you. But imagine those with 2 or 3 million followers. I feel the engagement could be really, really low, because in many cases, the content may not be relatable, right? But your content might be relatable to so many people. So that's why, at least if you want to leverage on influencers, use those who have smaller followers, because as I said, the interaction may be more meaningful and more effective. Of course, that's the influencer part. Of course, the other part is I would encourage, right, business owners just to create stories around their business. It is not to talk about their products, but it's talking about how can they become the source of inspiration to other people. Because the reality is, although we are inspired by the big names, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, but the truth is, we only want to learn from people who are just a few steps ahead of us, not from people who are a million steps, which is totally impossible to catch up. So that means, as a business owner, why don't I share the stories of how did I start this business? Maybe if you're running a bakery, for example, why don't you share your stories about renovating the whole place? And that becomes a great story. It becomes a good source of inspiration that people want to learn from.
Not many people are gifted to be good storytellers. There is this whole notion of I can do the business, I can also do some form of marketing, but being a storyteller is downright scary, if not daunting. How do you reach out to some of your partners or your clients in terms of this whole notion of this is not my cup of tea, this is way beyond me?
I understand, totally understand. I can relate to that. I spoke to so many of them, right? But then as I said to them, you started this business. Of course, you need to go all in. It is not going halfway and you just want to do this thing. That's why they need to be challenging themselves, because we live in a totally different world today. So challenging themselves in the sense that, are you daring enough to put yourself in front of the camera? Because in the attention economy, the future of brand will be driven by personality. It is not by a faceless corporation. So the content needs to have human presence, which means, although whatever happening with AI and those kind of technology, people will still want to relate to human. So which means they really have to push themselves, challenge themselves, and how can they bring themselves in front? Of course, it can be intimidating, right? But of course, you want to start first, do a very simple content. Probably you don't even have to show your face. You can show, maybe for example, if you run a bakery, just show what you have, right? And what's the story of, starting that business. Give an example of Khairul Aming. Remember when he started Rasa Pop many years ago? He did not actually showing his face. But eventually, as his audience was growing, and today has like over 12 million followers, I think, he started to show that this is the brand. This is the face of the brand. And when he ran that TikTok live, I think early last year, I think that's the reason why he was able to sell his product like 1.2 million ringgit within 3 minutes and 39 seconds. Because the trust has been built, the relationship has been built. So technically, if he wants to sell a bicycle today, I think
there's no problem.
No problem. Anybody wants to buy. So I think that's the beauty of this opportunity today.
Maybe I just want to tie in with a case study or case studies that we can understand this better. What about large brands like iPhone or Tesla?
Right.
Is it still applicable where personalities are driving these kind of brands? I mean, I can imagine Elon Musk trying to push Tesla, but for Samsung or Apple, how do they push their devices out?
I think for many reasons they have truly established the brand, right? Because they have invested millions or if not billions to build the brand. So for them, they can still be relatable to many people, although they don't have to put faces in front. But say for example, Apple, if you check their Instagram page today, there's nothing talking about the product, but each photo tells a story. But you can only do that once your brand is truly strong enough. Actually,
right? I do check Apple's Instagram from now and then. It's stories, people, face, we call that locations. Basically, nothing to do with the what do you call that? The specifications of the product. Red Bull.
If you look at Red Bull's content, right,
Yeah.
it's not even talking about the energy drink.
Yeah.
It's it talks about
Lifestyle, the dairy. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. They are, doing all these stunts, actions. The same thing. I think brands, they need to start thinking of companies. How do you chart your path to become a great brand that people want to talk about? And you can only do that through storytelling. But of course, that takes time. But if you don't start now, then when?
Let's talk about some of the risk areas that you're concerned about for this year. Is it inflation rates? Is it macro geopolitical tensions that's happening around the world? How does this compare against you taking stock of what has happened in 2024? Do you sit back and reflect what you have done, how you have performed, areas that you can improve on and such?
Yeah, I think in general, I mean, we could think about like what are the things that are affecting the global economy, right? But I feel, at least from the local perspective, I feel there's still a lot of opportunities to do things here. The reason is because if you look Malaysia in general, we have a lot of great industries. We have been building this over the last few decades, and the beauty of that is there's a lot of hidden opportunities that people have yet to discover. And with the geopolitical things that is happening, between the that part of the world and this part of the world, this means Malaysia is even actually in a better position. The only thing that people that need to focus on today, as I said, is how do you push these stories out? How do you market all these interesting innovation and industries to the potential customers from different parts of the world? And so if you think from this perspective, right, you will say that you will say that, okay, a lot of these things happening, a lot of challenges, and you're not actually thinking big enough. I think I've met so many companies, right? They are too localized, focusing on the local market. They're not even looking at the big picture that they can actually export a lot of the products and services today beyond the borders of Malaysia. And you can only do that, of course, through social media. And I've seen many companies are doing it already. One of the companies that I've met, I think about 2 years ago, a very small company, and what they do is they build smartphone cover, and they only sell to Japan, and they're making millions.
So niche, eh?
Yeah, and they're operating right here in Malaysia, and it's run by 2 or 3 people, and that's how they were able to penetrate certain markets. And that's the thing, right? Sometimes we say, oh, the market is saturated. The market is not saturated. The market is actually waiting for people like you and a lot of more businesses out there to show themselves. And you can only show that through your own personality, your stories, and you can do this greatly through of course, as I said, social media lah.
The one thing that you're worried about for this year?
The one thing that I'm worried about is people are not, how do I say, transitioning fast enough, leveraging on digital.
Oh.
Yeah, because as you know, of course, the pandemic helped to accelerate in some ways, right? But then
the pandemic is 5 years ago now.
Yeah,
if you think
about
it.
It feels
it
like
yesterday, but it has been 5 years ago.
Exactly. But still, people are still doing, and I've met so many companies, they're still quite traditional in some ways, and still not changing, still not doing things that they're supposed to do.
They lost hope, lah. I mean, there's if a pandemic doesn't change the way you do things, and it's been 5 years now.
Yeah. And people are very particular about how services are delivered today, right? Because I think it gives a lot of transparency to many businesses. So, for example, if a business doesn't perform well, or if, say, a restaurant, right, they don't serve good food, or the service sucks, people might just complain quite easily. So I think that's one of the biggest risks if customers or companies do not transform, do not change the way they work, they're continue going to be obsolete and
And your one opportunity that you think is like over glaring that needs to be expounded on for this year, what would that be?
I think at least from the Malaysian perspective or Malaysian companies' perspective, is to invest more on storytelling or invest more in marketing and try to push.
Don't shy away from marketing,
yeah, and to push beyond the boundaries, because again, as I said, right, the opportunities is not in this country. but is in this region, Southeast Asia, at least. Or if you feel that your products can go beyond, why not? And always think big. I think that's the beauty of this country is, I think Malaysia has a lot of great talent. I think Malaysia has, a lot of Malaysians have worked for many multinational companies, not just in this country, but all across the world. I think they have those knowledge that can be applied. They understand cultures, languages. I think Malaysia is actually in a great position to build, world-class companies. So why not just leverage, right?
Before I let you go, I want to talk to you more about Sabah. In fact, Sabah and Sarawak for that matter. Last year, I spent a lot of time in both Sabah and Sarawak, more than I've ever been in my life. Part of which is because of my day job, but more of the opportunities that lie within. There's a lot of culture and heritage that needed to be expounded on, that needs to be told.
Yes.
There's a lot of talents. Many of them are domiciled in Semenanjung or elsewhere.
Yep.
And perhaps depriving Sabah and Sarawak of fantastic talents that could be better generated. Do you have a lot of hope for Sabah? At least maybe you can talk to that effect.
Yes, actually, I am very hopeful of Sabah and of course Sarawak as well, in a way, because last year I was able to do a bit of work also in Sarawak. One thing about Sarawak is, as you know, they are extremely progressive. There's a lot of new initiatives and programs they are trying to push to help build that ecosystem right there. And of course, talking from the Sabahan's perspective, you are right, there are a lot of talented Sabahan, and they have been all around the world also, right? And of course, the challenge that people always talk about Sabah is the infrastructure, right? Of course, in many ways, the infrastructure is trying to be improved, in terms of connectivity and those kind of things. And one of the things, because I think Sabah has a lot of natural resources, and Sabahan entrepreneurs, they have access to this. And one of the things that they can truly change is to become social entrepreneurs, right? Businesses that not only make money, but also driving an impact. And together with building a digital ecosystem, for example, I'm sure they're able to start exporting their products. But of course, in many ways, they still need some help. So in a sense, what I'm trying to do right now, at least with my company, right, we have already sort of like created jobs in Sabah. So what we're trying to do is to build that digital ecosystem to train the local Sabahans on how to, for example, how to create content for social media, how do they tell stories, how do they help companies. And I feel with the right connectivity already in place, we can have remote teams. Why do you need to outsource to countries outside of Malaysia, like Philippines or Indonesia, if you can have talents that are based in Sabah, for example? So this is one of the things that we have started to look at since last year, and we hope to be able to grow this digital ecosystem and helping the whole entrepreneurship and startup, maybe in Malaysia, in Sabah, to be part of this. And I feel if we're able to build a strong digital ecosystem there, we can drive a lot of things, especially if you think about what's going to happen for the whole of Borneo.
Do you feel that the Sabahans elsewhere outside of Sabah, especially those in Semenanjung, should go back physically and do more work there? Or do you think that it doesn't matter where you are, as long as you are thinking about Sabah, that's fantastic enough, and building a digital ecosystem anywhere you are, after all, it is digital. That is something that needs to be thought of. It doesn't matter, or irrespective of where you are physically.
Yeah, it's nice to have a physical presence, right? Even for me, I do have clients already in Sabah. So what I do is just have to fly back and forth, to meet them physically. But in most cases, we just meet online. So because that's the beauty of the world that we live in today. You don't really have to be physically stuck in certain locations. You can be remote, you can be based in Semenanjung, and then have your clients there. But ultimately, we need to be able to build an ecosystem first and help to change some of the mindset of the people. Because I think everything in this world starts with the mindset. If the mindset is not right, then you cannot do anything at all. So I think in a sense, hopefully eventually we're able to drive that. I think not just not just us. I think there are many more entrepreneurs, business leaders who are keen to see change in both Sabah and Sarawak. And of course, I believe even you were there recently, right?
Yayasan is big on Sabah actually, and Sarawak. I mean, Yayasan Penaraju is doing a lot of work there.
Exactly.
And it's not just the caricature kind of occupation like front desking, and tourism and hospitality. It is digital animation, it is digital automation, data analysts, cybersecurity, those kind of stuff. We want Sabahan talents to have that kind of skill sets as much as we want Sarawak talents to have that skill sets as well. But speaking to that effect, what would be some of the messages that you want to share for youths, especially some of the young people that are watching us right now? But what's your message to them? 2025 is new, it's fresh. Many of them are still thinking about what to do this year. Right. What's the plan?
I think for the youth, you can't run away from doing hard things, right? I think a lot of us, grew up in different eras. We need to be doing difficult things. So don't try to run away from that, because that would actually help to contribute to build resiliency, to build your personality. And I think that is very important in today's context, because we need to be ready for the future, right? And we do not know what's going to happen in the future. So we need to be able to do that, do hard things. But of course, at the same time, clarity will only happen once you move forward. Sometimes we don't get full clarity about what am I going to do first, or what is my career going to be. But I always believe in trying in doing different things. If somebody offers you to do work, for example, to be a video editor for social media content, just do it, because you can learn very quickly today. There's so many resources from the internet. Just do it, and if it doesn't feel right, then you jump on to another thing, because ultimately you're actually building dots and you're trying to connect them. And this is actually some of the concepts that I always tell during my masterclass about. The ability to connect dots is very important. Just like when the iPhone was introduced, right? If you think about the iPhone, all the software, the hardware, they're not new. The touchscreen is not new. The size is not new. But basically, Steve Jobs were able to connect dots and bring everything together and make it as an interesting device that most people want to buy. So it's the same thing. You do things, you do the hard things, you gain more experiences doing different things, and ultimately it will connect, and that you'll have better clarity of what you want to do in the future.
Fantastic.
Right.
Thank you very much, Richard. Happy
New
New Year. What's your resolution for this year? Or
you
don't have the kind of resolution?
My resolution is just to grow the business. Hopefully I would be able to bring more impact to people, get our stories out outside of Malaysia. I feel a lot of my content went viral also, and I think it caught a lot of attention from people from different parts of the world. So hopefully
it's fantastic.
To,
I mean, sometimes because it's pushed to my timeline as well.
Right.
So it's always interesting to see your stories.
Yeah,
anyway, that's Richard Kerr of Richard Kerr Digital. My resolution is to get rid of 10 kilos. That's very straightforward.
Very easy, very easy.
Very easy, yeah. Achievable, measurable, the SMART, right?
Exactly.
Specific, measurable,
right.
Reliable, and timeliness. So I get rid of 10 kilos by 31st January.
For sure you can. All the best.
Thank you very much. Okay, if you missed out on some of the parts, just head on to astrology.com and find out more there. Until then, thanks very much for watching, and Happy New Year to you too.